What's up, team? Welcome back to the Huddle. We're your weekly playbook to help you gain forward progress in your flooring career. To all our new viewers, welcome to the team. What's up, fellas?
How's it going?
What's going on, brother?
It's going good. Today we are joined by Jordan and Eric. Jordan, can you help me with your last name, please, before I sabotage it?
No problem. Verhulst.
Verhulst. Okay, very good. And Mel Polder, is that right?
Yep, Mel Polder.
Nailed it. Okay. Yeah, so today, we are kind of exploring a new, we're all in the trades and we're just exploring how the flooring and the electrical trade kind of come together. So this episode's called Wired for Success. Sorry, I had to read off notes. I am technologically challenged today. My whole electrical system went out in our office for a moment, but we're back on and here with you guys live. So, as always, to the audience, if you guys, like what you get here from the Huddle, please like and subscribe. I'm a little bit off kilter, guys, because I came in as a guest, it looks like. So I'm going to try and make sure that I can do this correctly. But so every week we come together and we talk with it's me and the guys usually, and then we'll have guests on from different scopes of life. And you guys are in the flooring trade or in the electrical trade, and obviously I would guess that you guys experience the same kind of things we do from a trade shortage, like help, enough skilled labor, that kind of thing. Can you guys give us a little bit of background on yourselves, what you do in the trades world, and kind of how your manpower situation looks?
Actually, he just texted me and said that they are frozen right now. So their internet went out right before.
Well, the storms are causing problems everywhere.
It is, man. Jeez. So they're trying to get reconnected right now. And then my brother's having camera issues.
All right. Well, hopefully we can get this this technology train back on its rails. If you're joining us from the audience, our actual episode name is Exploring the Surprise Parallels Between Flooring and Electrical Trades. It's called Wired for Success. So you guys know the new dudes. You guys know Jordan. Is that correct?
Eric, yeah. So Jordan, I actually went to school. We went to school together, and he's married to my best friend's sister. Happy New Year, Mario.
Happy New Year.
So we actually see him quite a bit, or I mean he's in some of the groups that my brother's in with the chamber, and then I see him a lot on like job walks and stuff like that.
Yeah, we get to sit down and have a lot of the same. We get to share in our thoughts and a lot of the same meetings when it comes to some of the local politics and legislation and all that stuff. Nice stuff that goes in with being a business owner. The small details that you got to pay attention to sometimes.
Yeah, tell me about some of your conversations since they're having a little bit of problem getting connected here. What kind of conversations have brought the parallels that to the flooring world, them being in the electrical trade? We've talked about some of them throughout the years here on the Huddle, but more specifically, like, do they struggle with the same? I mean, is it the same struggle?
It's the same struggle, man. We were just kind of talking about it right before, right? And it's the labor shortages, and is it an actual labor shortage or is it a qualified labor shortage? And they go through the same stuff, right? Where what we see is guys coming in and saying, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. And then once it comes down to it, you're like, all right, go do this. And then they come back and it's like, all right, apparently I can't do this.
Yeah.
or at least they say that their guys will actually be humble and be like, yeah, I don't know how to do this. I feel like in the flooring trade, guys will just get mad at you and still tell you that you're wrong because we've seen it before.
Or they'll try. I mean, in electrical, they may not have that. Well, let's just try to run it.
Yeah,
Just, you know
let's
what I
just
mean?
try.
Just try it. Zzz,
Hey,
you know,
yeah, right. Hey, flip that switch. Let's see if it works.
yeah, let's give it a shot. And I think that's where we land a little bit um, different is in the flooring world. I know I've experienced it, and you guys have experienced it where a guy says he can do something, you send him out to do it, he'll still do it even though he doesn't know how to do it, he doesn't do it right, he'll still do it. So like you're not burning down a house because you put a floor in wrong, but
Right.
in their trade, you wire something wrong and you got a problem. They're back.
I think us non-electricians have all tried to wire something
Yeah.
and then actually flip a switch and then you see sparks. Yeah, that's
It only
Well, I
hurts
don't
your
know
first
how
time.
much you guys missed, but but or heard when I first started the podcast off. But you guys mind giving us some background on yourself, a little bit about you guys, what you do, and maybe some of your main struggles in your trade?
First of all, I've been doing this for 16 years now. Worked at a couple different companies, and then me and got linked up at the last night to go out on our own and started Frontier. I guess a couple things that I've noticed is like the guys willing lately or wanting to put in more than right as you guys deal with flooring too. It's not always a 6 to 2, 7 to 3:30. It's when the job's done. So find willing to put in the hours to get the job done.
Yeah, willing to put in
Yeah.
the hours to get done and not to a time frame. Yeah, that we have the same problem, and
Right.
I'm may feel like I'm picking on the unions a bit here, and I'm not, but it's a little bit of that type of deal that got brought in. The problem is the industry isn't following suit. If you do work, whether it's electrical or flooring on a commercial building, the number one thing that drives the job is schedule. Like they want it, you got to get done.
Right.
The next guy's got to get done. It's like all schedule driven. And so there's no room for somebody to come in and work from, 7 to 2:30, or in our world, it's like 9 to 3 or something, you got to
You got to be pretty fluid.
you got to have the desire to stay and get it finished.
Yeah,
Whatever
it's a
that
challenge,
task.
you're right.
And a lot of the time, flooring guys, you're waiting on us.
Yeah. Or vice
We're
versa.
too-
We need heat, air, and we need lights.
we're always waiting
Right.
on somebody.
Yeah. We typically try to do our best to wait on the electricians and the HVAC guys. Those are very important for us. We
Well,
kind of need that.
It's because electricians don't own brooms or anything, so we're always cleaning up.
Always leaving their change around.
Well, obviously, some of the clear parallels is,
for you to grab.
All those nickels, man. Been collecting them for years.
Yep.
yeah, obviously some of the parallels in any of the trades is finding qualified people. You mentioned that you can actually find some qualified guys, but it seems like they don't want to put in the hours. Do you have the same problem that those same guys also need a loan on Friday, or they're constantly having vehicle issues because they ain't got no money? Do you have that dichotomy where you're like, hey, man, you put in 31 hours last week?
I don't necessarily think we don't face that a whole lot. I mean, we have the one-off situations where someone's having car problems or, something along those lines. The big thing for us is probably finding that qualified person. And they can come with the qualifications from another company, but in that company they may have been doing this task, whereas their qualification they should be doing this at this point. So you could be a second, third year, or fourth year on these tasks through those first couple of years of your apprenticeship. So with that, a lot of our foremen have an expectation of hey, we hired a third year, this amount. And it's not to discredit them. It's how they operate. Being that size of a company, you put those people kind of in an assembly line, and that's what they do. So that's another, one that kind of pops up on our end as well.
Where do you guys get your where do you go searching for new talent, whether it's apprentices or journeymen or foremen or whatever in your trade? Do you have a trade school that you can pull from? Do you guys foster new guys or
Yeah,
how do you guys go about that?
I'd say we're half word of mouth and half we've hired out of GRCC, which is the local community college here. They have like a vocational program through the MTech, which is they have like a trade school almost. So it's like a 6-month program, and they put people through that and teach them the very, very basics of the electrical world. So it's, in a way, for us, it at least shows that level of dedication that you were willing to go through this, practically be where.
I think we lost him again.
Because of the tundra, they're frozen.
Okay, so essentially they're pulling from a community college around there, which is at least something, a feeder kind of program that they have. Electricians,
a couple of them around here like that, where
typically have a little bit better. That drywalling, carpentry that are more heavily represented than flooring in the trade schools. I'm not.
I would say
sure why that is, but
carpentry, plumbing, electrical, and mechanics. Those are the four main that I see here. And I did see that engineering was on the rise a couple of years ago when I went and made a visit to some of the vocational programs, learning how to run CAD systems and stuff like that.
I mean, just in the high schools alone, they have the STEM programs, which is great to get people like more focused on the trades and stuff. So
back again.
I mean, that STEM.
Yeah, they're back again. So let me go. So Jordan, I'm going to go over this again. So you guys do pull from some of the programs from like GRCC, some of the local entities like what's the other one? West Michigan
Construction Institute.
Construction industry. I don't know if that caters to you. Still facing the same problems that we are, qualified individuals willing to put in the work. Now, I know that we had talked very briefly before we started the podcast about some of the policies that just passed. Fortunately, like for us, we're not subject to some of those policies. So maybe you can tell some of the flooring industry what you guys just avoided, kind of just in a snippet. But I know the plumbing didn't, but they could count their blessings that we don't have to deal with that as of right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so the state mandates an apprentice to journeyman ratio, which currently it's 3-to-1. So you can have 3 apprentices to 1 journeyman or master electrician. And the proposed legislation was going to change that to a 1-to-1 ratio, which would severely deplete, obviously, the up and coming apprentices that are, in the process of working towards a journeyman's license or going through school at that time. So it's not officially dead yet. But it did not pass during like the lame duck session at the end of 2024. And the thought was that if it didn't pass then, with the administration change, it likely won't pass once that takes place. So getting through the lame duck session was a big, I guess, win for us. I think the state of Michigan tried it, and 14.
Yeah, it's 14. And you just found more people were trying to go around it versus
Can you explain to me? I'm a little bit dense sometimes. Can you tell me what the benefit, what the goal, what were they trying to accomplish with that legislation?
So the main I guess argument for the revision was that it would improve safety on job sites, which looking back at historical data when they changed it from 3-1, or they changed it back to 3-1 from 1-1 in 2017, I think it was. There hasn't been any noticeable increase on OSHA recordables from when they changed from 1-1 to 3-1. So there's a long rabbit hole that we can dive down to other reasons why. I mean, it was more or less, I mean, from my eyes, a union driven issue. But there's some other small pieces where there's some contractors that aren't, they're more on the shady side, where they'll hire an apprentice and they don't necessarily register them with a course, because if you have an electrician working for you, they have to be registered with a state sponsored program. So they can register, or like they work for you for 4 years and then they want to go take a test, but they've never registered. So at that point, they basically I don't want to say wasted, but in some ways wasted 4 years of working, and now they're not able to test for a journeyman license. And so some of that was to get rid of that as well. So
it's not like they can go back and just tell them, hey, I'm supposed to have all these hours. It's something that has to be recorded while it's happening.
Yeah.
Because you come to a company like us now and you try to get in, and it's like, well, you're a fourth year ready to take your test, but in the system, you're a first year apprentice.
Yeah.
No proof.
No proof.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess to expand on that a little bit, in order to test for a journeyman license, you have to have 8,000 hours of working in the field plus 4 years of completed schooling. So you have to have both of those complete in order to test for your license. So even if you work for X amount of years in the field, but you've never completed schooling, technically from a state perspective, you're not ready to test.
Right. And I think I've talked to you before too about how it's awesome that has to happen, because in the flooring industry, we have no regulations at all. And it's just essentially a free for all. You guys can start installing flooring tomorrow if you wanted to. And then it's a struggle for us to try and get anyone to do a certification class or something like that. But also, it's when we were talking about pricing, the pricing that you guys have to deal with is a lot lower than what we have to deal with, because we're looking at a 2 or 3 day certification costing $700.
Yeah.
Well, I think the people that they're after, or the people that they get to, are in it for the long haul. I don't think anyone looks at as an electrician or a plumber as, I'm going to try this out for a couple months and then step away. Right? They understand that is structured and is career oriented, and you guys require training and all that.
The progression is tracked. You're rewarded for the time that you spend. The progression is tracked. That we don't track progression outside of Go Carrera, which is a software that I developed, but that offers what the industry needs to do that tracking and to verify that skill and the score that takes in the year. It basically does exactly what you're talking about. It tracks their years of experience, their education, and mixes it together for a tradesman score that is a skill score for them in a certain piece of flooring. But that's not an industry requirement. And so what Daniel's saying is, like, literally you can just go watch your cousin install tile over the weekend, jump in your truck, slap a sticker on and say, Jordan Tile, and go out and
start Frontier Flooring, starting it up.
Frontier Flooring and start competing. And then we have, so you get this vacuum of sub-quality company and labor sucking down the prices all the time from the companies who really do like Preferred. Their guys are trained. They get them in certification courses and education, and they want to mimic, good companies in flooring want to mimic somewhat what electricians or plumbers do in an apprenticeship kind of program, but very few and far between is there apprenticeship programs for flooring. So we struggle with getting the really to the qualified side. You know what I mean? So we can get guys, but there's no way to verify if they're qualified unless they're in on the platform. There's no way to verify. You know, a guy can tell you, yeah, I've been doing it 20 years. How do you know?
All right.
Give me some references. They give you their cousins.
Yeah.
Like you got to have, and the way that you guys are set up, geez, I tell you what that's a good thing in a lot of ways. I'm sure you guys appreciate it, but it's a good thing that make sure that you have some structured program for the guys to go to the next level. I know you got your guys' time is short, but I have a follow-up question to this piece of legislation. What is the biggest, to me, it seems like it would push guys to do things that they're probably not qualified for yet, or maybe your guy that he's a 3-year journeyman, but all he did was put in outlets and some like fixtures the whole time, just wiring in fixtures or something. And maybe that's an oversimplification from a flooring guy, but is the fear that then you're going to have to, that guys are going to go into the journeyman position without being ready just to hit a quota of 1-to-1?
I think some of it's going to be, so for instance, our company, I mean, we're a smaller contractor in the grand scheme of things. Technically, if that legislation would have passed, we would have had to let 2 people go because we don't have enough licenses to account for how many apprentices we have. So those people that have dedicated 2 or 3 years now, all of a sudden it's like, I'm sorry, we can't employ you anymore because legally we aren't allowed to. And so for some of the larger companies out there that, you know, have 200-300 electricians working for them, or maybe they have 100 licenses and 200 apprentices, it's like, how many people are going to lose their jobs because of this happening?
All right.
So it would greatly impact,
investment.
you know, the speed that construction's done. There would be a lot of wage increases because as far as precious as journeymen are now, I mean, their value would have just skyrocketed. And people, I mean, obviously companies would have just been fighting for licenses, I mean, across the state.
Would this also consolidate, like smaller companies may go out and the bigger companies, dare I say union, but like consolidate, because the guys, the journeyman would always be going like to the whoever's going to offer them the most money because they need more journeymen to be able to keep the amount of apprentices they have. Essentially, the big companies would gobble up. At least outside looking in, it seems like the big companies would gobble up the journeymen. They got the cap space and maybe the cash to do so, and the smaller, really good companies out there could
You'd have to basically
push out almost.
Yeah, I would say that would have been. I don't know. It would have been, you know, everybody would have went through that, but I would say a lot of the smaller companies would have gotten driven out.
Yeah. Wow.
Or bought out, or, you know, whatever would happen. But yeah, I mean, thought we lost you again.
Some level of consolidation.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was the fines that were associated with it too, which was one of the major differences from one of the previous iterations of this bill. Previously, it was only the state that could issue fines, like if they were to go to a job site and say, "Hey, let me see your cards." So now it was any local authority. So like if our local Grand Rapids electrical inspector would have come to a job site and said, "Hey, you have 3 apprentices and 1 journeyman here," then the city of Grand Rapids would receive that fine money in lieu of the state. So like, so it was going to
incentive for people to find you.
It's
Yeah,
like,
so
like
Yeah,
the old
well, it was-
Western deputization.
Yeah. So it was more incentive for the local,
man.
you know, authorities to really, you know, enforce it. So yeah, that would have been a big difference with the passing of this as well. And I believe the plumbing bill that did pass had that same language in it, which they went from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1. So that's, you know, it's still a drop in theirs, but at least it's better than 1-to-1. So,
Yeah.
But yeah,
That doesn't
You know, and I think that's why, I don't know if you were at one of those meetings, but I think that's what I said out loud, kind of like made everybody like look at me weird, but when I said it just sounds to me like they're trying to create more government positions, is what it sounds like to me. And yeah, everybody kind of, I don't know. I say some things sometimes in those meetings that
Well, you're-
probably need to
you're
be
kind of
heard, but nobody wants to say.
You're kind of pitting government facilities against one another. Who can get to you first? Because
Yeah.
whoever's going to get that fine money, it sounds like a terrible piece of legislation there that you guys avoided. I know that I've spent some time on that, but it's interesting to me when there is some structure around how then the overreaching, we got to be careful what we ask for in flooring, because then the overreaching of these structures and who's behind it is what lobbyists or things are behind that idea. Is it the union lobbyists pushing that agenda?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't want to get any.
I don't think it's officially out there, but that would be my educated guess. Is that
the union's pushing for it?
Yeah.
Well, let's just do some simple math here, right? Over
It's
here
my
in Michigan, the east side of the state, there has been a little bit of a decrease in union productivity, right? And it started years ago. So what do you do when the industry that created the structure starts to struggle a little bit? You flex your muscles and use your contacts and maybe swell up a little tear in the eye and go out and say, this is what needs to change and this is why. And we need to maintain our structure, and what can we do to change it? Oh, we already have that plan written out. Just speculation, guys. Just speculation from my part. That's all.
Well, we're always asking for more structure on our side because, like I said, our biggest problem is one of the biggest problems I'd say is that anybody can just jump in a truck and say they can do flooring. It's very much subcontractor driven. So most of us sub our labor out. We don't have in-house employee installers. Now, I do at my company. I do both. Preferred Flooring mainly has hourly employee W-2 installers and subs a little bit out. But there's most companies in Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, like anywhere that's not heavily unionized, subcontractors kind of run the gamut. They do the most work. So if you can imagine, if you were in the same position, some new sub comes in and says, yeah, I'm great. You need work done. And they can just tell you, yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. And yeah, we've got to let him go. But that's probably our biggest problem is the fact that we have completely unqualified guys saying that they can do work. And being deceptive about it even. And that's an industry problem. So we ask for structure, but then you can see where structure can go. It just bigger, overreaching that almost into a non-productive scenario for not only you guys, the mid-size or high quality electrical contractors or trade contractors out there, but it's like really shooting the smaller guys in the foot. Like the guy that has, if that bill would have passed and it's an electrician who does it on his own, he's got two apprentices that work for him. He's going to have to fire half one of his guys.
Yeah. Hopefully the structure that we have is created from us internally instead of someone who's overseeing the industry, right? We want to.
That's what we need to do. We can do it. What was you saying, Eric?
I said, I mean, that was the big thing. Like companies like us, like Jordan said earlier, they dedicated 2 years to us, and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, you got to go.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, and I mean, not to say that. I mean, perfect world, maybe we could live in a 1-to-1 world, like ratio. Like to say that it's not a benefit, I can't say that. I mean, having an apprentice work 1-on-1 with a journeyman is, I mean, it would be awesome. The amount that they would learn over a 4-year span versus if they were working with 5 or 6 other apprentices is a big difference, but it's just not realistic in the world that we're in.
How could you get there in a perfect world? How could you get there? What would make that possible?
We'd have to have 4 times as long construction schedules. The projects would be a lot more expensive. I
And you
mean,
have to
schedule's probably the
charge a lot
biggest
more
one.
money.
Money.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
schedules are so tight nowadays, and that's like the main way. I mean, most general contractors, when they present a schedule to begin a job, no one else has really seen that. And a lot of it is, we need it done, and we need it done now. And so, in order to do that, obviously, you need a lot of bodies. And with having a shortage of, licensed electricians on site, I mean, we can only move so fast. And then if you cut out a bunch of the apprentice helpers, then it goes even slower.
Well,
So,
and
yeah.
then you almost decrease the inflow in you get into where, and maybe it's not a bad world to be in, like the elevator business, where very few mechanics, it's 1-to-1 and extremely expensive, extremely high labor. We lost a guy that was paid well for us in flooring, but just starting off, he was making another 20% to go follow some guy around in the elevator world. And he's going to triple his pay by the time he became a journeyman. Like,
Sounds like you got shafted.
it's just crazy money, but they don't have a big influx because of that 1-to-1. Like, that one guy can still only trade one guy for that time frame, so you almost stifle off your inflow of people into the trades, and we don't need that either. We need more people coming into the trades. So
yeah, I mean, it was very counterintuitive to the issue that and it's not Michigan alone either. I mean, it's nationwide.
yeah,
That's facing a shortage of qualified people here. So it's one of those where us talking about it now, it doesn't make any sense, but way up there where it was being discussed,
utopian.
Yeah.
Because I
It's
mean,
easy
you
to
think
make
about it
sense
too.
when you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like when I started, and I graduated high school. It was like you got to go to college. You got to go to college. You're not going to be anything unless you go to college. Now it's kind of changing to where, hey, we need you to go into the trades, right? So all those guys back when I graduated who went to college, and what are you doing that you went to college for? Nothing.
Yeah.
Most of those guys are in trades now.
They're electricians.
Right.
Yeah, we talk about it
There's one
pretty often
right
on
here.
here. We talk about it pretty often on here. And I don't want to hold you guys. If you got to go, just let me know. But one of the things we say a lot is the push to college, and that was almost a 2-decade long, maybe even longer push that if you don't go to college, you ain't shit.
Right.
And most of the time, around 70%, it depends on which study you read, but around 70% of the people that graduate do not go into the
field
workforce
that
in which they were trained for.
Mhm.
It's so much higher in the trades. If you go through a trade school, you are going to that trade.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like I got my liberal arts degree and then I went and work a teller position at a bank, two totally
It's
different.
literally what happens.
That's literally what happens. And I do
just
see the wave changing, going back towards the trades, because there's all these comparisons. Just compare the debt that you incur, and then you get a job that's going to pay you, 45, 50 grand maybe when you graduate, and then going through trade school and getting an apprenticeship. And by the time there was a study done, I found it fascinating that it was like age 44 before, and it was in the upper trades like electricians and plumbers, but it was like age 44 before a doctor caught up with the earning of a tradesman. And it was because of all the debt they incurred. The first few years of residency, they get paid squat, and then they finally start getting paid. And it was age 40 or 44 before they caught up with the tradesperson in the amount of money that they've actually brought into their household.
I guess that shows that you can either have your debt compound, right, interest, or you can have your labor compound interest.
Your knowledge.
Yeah. It's like,
Compound your knowledge or compound your debt. That was
And I've seen it too. where it's like, hey, I went to college for 2 years. I don't know what I want to do. So I want to come, be an electrician, but I want to make X, right? Because I have student loans to pay. Well,
Entitlement. Yeah.
As the apprenticeship, right, you're usually at the bottom tier. And then every 6 months, we're going to eval you, and then you're going to move up. But they want to skip those steps because I got student loans to pay off.
Yeah. Yeah. The government didn't do as, and it was firmly in my belief that it was they're pushing that, but the push for college education did not do very many people any good. Like, all it did was enrich colleges because they started coming up with degrees that made no damn sense.
Right.
Like they you know what I mean? There's only so many jobs at a museum to be a historian that you can fill. Like, opening all these new degrees up over the last 20 years. If you look at that, it's a crazy number. So I will let you guys go. I know you got some stuff to go.
I think the internet said that they were leaving. They froze again.
Okay, well, we have lost our
Thank you
guest for the day. I appreciate you guys joining us. It was
Thanks for having us on here. Thank you.
He did. He said, I give up. This is wild.
Well, I want to tell him I said thank you. That was fascinating to hear that little bit. And I'm glad you brought it up, Jose, that what they went through, because that opened up a lot of questions on my mind about, like, what's the benefit and who's pushing for it. And if we push for this oversight kind of view in our industry, you can see what happens when government, or let's just say authoritarian type entities, take over the control of an industry. It's like now they're overreaching. They do stuff on paper that they think sounds good, and at the end of the day, all it does is hurt the actual people doing the job, losing jobs.
Yeah.
It sounds like to me a ton of people would have probably lost their job over if that legislation was passed, as well as a lot of
companies.
I mean, the big companies would have swallowed up these apprentices because they have journeymen that they compare them with, where I would imagine if it's a smaller company, if I was an electrician, I would have just enough journeymen to do the work I need and backfill them with apprentices. Like, that's a pretty smart business model, Yeah, I don't know. It opened up a ton of questions in my head about the, and it was also interesting to hear that they struggle. At least they recognize they're always in our way. The site conditions that they brought up. That they're usually before us and they need to get done. And mentioning
it's part of their training. It's part of the program for the first year apprentice to understand how to infiltrate the flooring industry and be in their way and leave knockouts and clippings everywhere. And
well, you have a way to at least combat some of your site conditions if you got floor cloud. You guys, if you at least you can figure out if the electricians have your HVAC system hooked up and that's fired up. If you got floor cloud on your site, floor cloud will give you all the information about your project site right at your fingertips. It's a cellular driven technology right off a sensor that you put in anywhere into the job site. You can even read your moisture test with the right hookup, and it's super simple. I know you guys use it a lot more even than we do. So, if you want to deploy your crews with confidence to job sites and know that your project's at least ready from a specification standpoint, get yourself a membership, a subscription to Floor Cloud. Get with Patrick and them guys over there, Scott, and hook them up. I think let me go ahead and play a quick video for Floor Cloud here.
Floor Cloud enables real-time monitoring of your job site conditions via desktop or mobile device. No more manual checking for temperature, humidity, or even dew point. No need for base stations, Wi-Fi, or external power sources. Simply scan the QR code on the front of your sensors and you're up and running with the most accurate and innovative site monitoring system in the flooring industry. Dispatch your crews with confidence and reduce your climate-related installation issues.
Now you know.
You know.
No, and when you guys were we were talking earlier, and he was talking about, going from a big company to a smaller company and not really having the know-how because in the bigger companies you're only doing this or you're only doing that. And I kind of feel that like that's where the business is, right? Going from a huge company to a small company, you got to wear many, many different hats. And that's just one of the struggles of every small business owner. And that's, I think, why we could relate a lot to each other. It's because we are small businesses. So
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, just like you said, that's probably less of a trade problem and more of a just moving from a big company to a smaller company problem. Big back in the day, the big automakers that had assembly lines, that those employees did the same thing. They did this. If you're building an entire car, and you got to be a mechanic and a body man and you know what I mean? Like all these things. It's kind of like in flooring, why we're so separated between hardwood, ceramic tile, carpet, and resilient. I mean, I know plenty of really good carpet guys that could not put a piece of tile floor down to save their life, or a
Mhm.
tile guy that you give them a piece of broadloom and they'll look at you like you are asking them to skydive. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
so flooring is flooring, but we have the same deal. You get a guy that is at a real big company and all he did was grout for 5 years. Like
right,
he grout a fantastic, like,
grout master.
yeah, he can make a good tile job look great, or a great tile job remain great. Like, grouting's where it's at and everything's
That's an
finished.
art too, dude.
And you can do that. But then if you came to a company like mine and you're called a tile finisher, I'm expecting you to make cuts, like, stone edges, do layout, like be able to
To
do the
finish
whole
it.
thing. Yeah. So, yeah, I could see that, particularly in their zone, because I know that there's some electricians that they don't touch. All they do is pull wire to the appropriate boxes, and you got somebody that's going through, and it's like an assembly line on a job site. You got someone going through and hooking up the fixtures, and
And I think that's that progression too, though, right? Because if you're only a year in, this is what you're doing. Like, yeah, you can watch me and help me do this, but once this is done, you're going to do your job.
yeah,
And it's kind of like that in flooring too. It's just not that streamlined because there's so much going on with what we do, I think.
mm-hmm.
And then when
But
you
you
were
can't
talking
have,
about like the verticals, right? Like carpet, hardwood, uh, tile,
tile.
stuff like that. And yeah, and you got residential and commercial in there.
Yeah,
And then you got everyone like on the group pages, someone asks a question and they just hammer them, man. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
yeah, we're not a real
sometimes I
friendly
have
group.
questions.
There's not a real friendly group on there. I haven't been on those pages in a long time, if I'm honest. But part of that is, and I'm not saying we need to be kumbaya, everybody like glorifying or help whatever one another, but there is just a better way to approach it. And I know that really the guys that I look up to in flooring share knowledge willingly, are slow to uh, demean or tear down somebody, and quick to teach. And I think if we could just be that in our businesses, quick to teach and slow to tear down, we'd improve. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that I'm envious of the system that they do have. Like they have a school they can pull from. You sign them up on with the state. Here's my apprentice. this apprentice is going to work for 4 years. He knows it. He's not asking, hey, I want to be a journeyman 2 weeks after he went in. I mean, I've literally had guys come in after working with one of our mechanics, one of our lead installers for 6 months and say, hey man, I'm ready. I want to do this. I want to be my own crew. I'm like, you have no idea, dude. Like you're not you're close to ready. That system prevents those guys from trying to, they know what level they're at and they get paid this amount for that level.
And if you want to move on, you have to actually go through the progression and then test out. Like, yes, I know how to do this.
You have to get the education and the experience. And that's what we built Go Carrera's, the algorithm, the score on education, experience. That's the only two ways you get good at anything. And when you can accurately track and do that, they just have a state entity doing that for them. Basically, they sign them up. The date is set and logged. They started here. I'm sure that then that person, well, it sounds like that person then works through and takes periodic education and testing. And then to test out to be a journeyman, you got how many hours he say, 8,000 or something like
8,000.
So like, I am a little jealous of a system like that, because too often you get guys in and they want to skip all the other steps. Similar to his example of the guy that went to college. I need to make this amount because I got student loans. Well, I'm sorry that you got student loans. But you're a level 1 apprentice. And this is what level 1 apprentices make. You want me to, this guy's been here for a year and a half, getting ready to go to level 2. You're going to make the same as him. Would that be fair to him? And so that's probably a struggle for them as well. But there is something to that system. That's what Go Carrera, from an outside standpoint, not a government entity forcing it upon, but that's what that whole idea is about, is just tracking years of experience, tracking education, and tracking the progression of an installer so that we can have some level of saying, okay, instead of it's just different terminology. He's a 4-year apprentice. Okay. He's a level 1 tile installer, for example. So it's just different vernacular, but it's the same thing.
Right. And
you
I think
progress as you progress.
The best thing about it, what you said, is that education aspect is because they're required to get their education and go to classes. And I talked to them about this, and I think we've talked about it on here before. It's once a week. They're going to classes on their own time. Yeah. It's not like I'm going to come to work and then I'm going to do it while I'm at work. It's all right. You're going to get out of work. You're going to go to your class. You're going to get your education. See you tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm a little jealous.
And it's the kind of the same thing in the union too, right? Because it's the union. When I talked to them, they were like, yeah, there's one of the unions was I don't know if it was like every quarter or something, but they shut down for a week and the guys had to collect unemployment and then just attend classes for that whole week. The other ones, it was like, nope, we do it, a class or something a month. And what ends up happening is they vote on what day they want to do it on, and it's not at work. So it's typically a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, that's what I appreciate about all that, is this the owning of your trade, of your life, of your skill. That like, you have to give a little, like sacrifice a little bit. Sacrifice a Saturday because you got to go to class and get your 8 hours for the quarter of education or whatever that is. And that's this coming year. One of the big things is CEUs within Go Carrera is going to be a thing, and not in Go Carrera as the platform, but as part of the algorithm to help support that.
Awesome.
Come on, guys, get those credits, those education credits to help build your knowledge base up and prove that you're the best.
And then if people don't look at it like that
all the time, like prove that you're the best, the fact is, in other trades, you just have to even get the job. You have to do this. I'm just, we're just begging people over here to go in, get the education, get the experience, apply yourself, and then continue your education and go to workshops and do this stuff. We're begging as an industry for crews to do that. Over there in other trades, it's just, you just don't have a job if you don't do it.
Well, I think the structure that they have too is they're requiring a minimum of in order to advance, right? And I think us as an industry, we minimize our requirements so that way we get bodies, and that's not good for us either. And what you just shed some light on there too is the Saturday classes, 8-hour classes or whatever, once a month or once a week or whatever, is required. A lot of the people in the industry that I've worked with, they were all athletes at some point, right? And did you get your practice at the game only, or did you go off on your own time and get better and try to hone some skills to make the team or to have a starting position? It's no different for your career than it is for any sport or hobby. You don't get better by just experiencing it when you're supposed to. You get better by experiencing it on your own and learning your own limitations.
I just had this conversation with my son, and that's what I told him, right? And I said, because, his mom was like, he goes to practice every day. And I said, yeah, and that's the bare minimum.
So in the summer when I, like, my son plays baseball and, I have homework every day, like I required during baseball season, I did require him to take 50 swings off a tee into a net. And he said, he said, like, why do I have to do this? At first he didn't like it, but then he got better at hitting. And part of that is because now you have 50 more swings a day than anybody else who's not practicing. You have 50 more opportunities to become 50 swings better, 50 swings better, 50 swings better.
It speaks to the fact that in our industry so far, and we can change this in 25, this is the year that we can all change this. But it speaks to the fact that what we do is we go to work. We think it's our education, our employment, and our babysitter. Like, in a lot of ways, our industry, the participants, the installation community, I was as guilty as any when I installed too. But we don't go outside to gain the knowledge, and it just all the opportunities there. We don't think very heavily. Like, if you want a car, man, I know guys that if they want a car, they'll make a deal here, deal there, and before you know it, stack some this and that and the other to get a loan to get the car they want. But they won't sacrifice or do any of those same, mathematical gymnastics to improve their career that will improve their earning. So, I want to see at least the boat turn this year towards people requiring installers to be trained. Go get a certain amount and tracking. If nothing else, getting a profile for tracking the education units that you get and being able to prove that as an individual to your potential employer, and for the potential employer to be able to verify. That's all that they're talking about. That was the whole thing they talked about. It just state mandated.
Right.
Yeah. And we can do it within our own industry. We can do it within a flooring veteran matched up with a couple other flooring veterans, matched up with some other flooring inside. We can build this to where we have created an atmosphere or a ecosystem where that's how it works.
Dang it.
So we don't have to have a government entity if we don't want. Sooner or later, I'm assuming that something will happen, but
well, they're going to want a piece of their pie, right? You can't make money without paying the piper. That's unfortunately how the U.S. Government operates lately. So,
well, and I'm fine paying as long as my roads are fine, right? I mean, like, as long as you're getting the benefit. Like, paying's one thing, paying and then blowing out a tire on a street because the roads aren't properly taken care of or your infrastructure is falling apart. That's a whole nother thing, a whole nother podcast. But
right.
the truth is like, I think most Americans we're fine paying for a fee to go learn something or to do this, as long as we know there's a benefit for us on the backside, or we can recognize a benefit from it on the backside. So at least that's my hope. Well, that was an interesting conversation. I'm glad those guys joined. All right, fellas, we have reached the end of the podcast here. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thanks for all the comments. Appreciate everybody. Happy New Year to those of you that were not on last week's when we did a quick little, half hour maybe?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, just a little quick one.
A little quick
We just
one,
said
but
hello.
Happy New Year to everybody. I wish you the best for 25. Let's band together. Let's really do some cool stuff.
Yeah, let's work on mindset this year. I think I like you said, people need the companies need to hold installers accountable, and installers need to hold themselves accountable, and it all has to do with mindset. You can't think that you're the best at everything, like you said, that with like no credibility.
Mhm.
Let's start getting some credibility, and that starts today.
Yeah, let's build that credibility. Amen.
Speaking of who's the best, I am definitely the best at slipping and falling. And thank you, Jeremy, for checking in on me. Appreciate you, brother.
All right.
Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen, it's all over social media. The video of this guy falling is hilarious.
I got to check it out.
It made me go get some higher resolution cameras so that way I can see it in HD next time.
There will be a next time, I promise.
All right. Well, keep steady feet there, my friend. Don't take any more skills. And just a quick reminder before we close out, TICE is at the end of this month. So anybody who will be out there doing interviews, checking up with the installation competition, kind of roaming around, seeing what the 2025 is bringing in. If you got the time to get out to Las Vegas and hang out with us, please do. Look us up, give us a holler, and let us know if you're going to be there. That is at the end of this month. And go check out the installation competition. I think it's going to be pretty awesome this year. There's some international stuff going on as well, I believe, and it's going to be fun. So with that, guys, we'll catch you next week, and
Thank you, everyone.
have a blessed afternoon.
See ya.
All right. See you guys.